Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, we're going to be looking at conditional activities, also known as restricting access and activity completion. Okay, so the aim of today will be showing how a teacher would control access to their resources so that only certain students can see the resources that you make available to them. And we're also going to show activity completion, which will allow teachers to set completion on a certain activity so that a student must complete an activity in order to access another piece of course material. As usual, we're using Google Hangouts on air, so there is a chat facility built in into here, so you can use the chat facility to post any questions you might have when I'm going through the demonstration phase. And you can also make a note of my email address there just in the middle should you have any questions after this webinar has ended. Feel free to email me. So the first thing we're going to be looking at today is restricting access. So I'm going to show how teachers control access to their course activities and resources, and that can be done by a date range. We can also control access by grade, by group, by information which is stored within the user's profile, and also activity completion, which is something that we're going to go through a little bit later. One of the new things that we can control access with is usually we just use resources and activities, but we can control access for an entire course section, which is something that's new in Moodle. And we can also well, in order to use restrict access, you must have the conditional activity setting enabled in Moodle. So that's probably the first thing I'll show you during the demonstration. Activity completion allows teachers to set a completion criteria for a specific activity or resource. So a student must meet the criteria in order to make sure that the activity is marked as complete. And students can mark activities as complete manually if the teacher allows them to do that. Again, activity completion is easily linked to restrict access as well, so that allows you to unlock certain activities based on results achieved within a certain activity. Again, this option, this feature, activity completion, must be enabled in Moodle, and there's also an extra setting which needs to be enabled within your course. So it's a great way, this activity completion is a great way for students to see their progress within the course, and same goes for teachers as well. They can log in as a student and see how well they're doing within the course or how they're progressing within the course. Okay, so during the walkthrough, I'm going to be going through and demonstrating how a teacher would use both conditional activities and activity completion. So restricted access they will use to control access to their course resources. I'm also going to be logging in as a student to test certain scenarios, and I'm going to be doing a demonstration of activity completion, so that when a student marks an activity as complete, they're able to access another activity, such as a game, that kind of thing. So without further ado, I'm just going to close this slideshow down and move on to our demo site, which we have here. So I'm logged in as a teacher. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to enable both features. So the first feature is restricting access, and the second one is activity completion. So in the Moodle homepage, you have a administration block here, and at the very bottom we have site administration. Okay, in here we have a link called advanced features. So this is what we need to click on. So that's the first thing you would need to do. So by default, these two options are not enabled. So my page is just loaded now, and if I scroll down, there's lots of settings here, but there's two settings which you need to make sure are ticked. So there's one called enable completion tracking, which is ticked here, and there's also enable restricted access, which is also ticked. But you need to make sure that both these options are ticked in order to use these features. Okay, so that's the first thing you would go to. So that was under site administration and advanced features. The second thing you need to do is when the course that you're using, you need to edit the course settings and enable activity completion. So if you go, I'm in my geography course here, and again in the administration block, this time I'm going to click on edit settings. So that allows me to see my course settings, such as my course full name and short name. But if I go down a bit further, I can now see a heading called completion tracking, and enable completion tracking is set to yes because I've set that previously, but you need to make sure that's set to yes in order to use completion tracking. Okay, so I'm just going to go back into our course again, and the first thing I want to do is turn editing on as a teacher. So in order to make changes to my resources, I want to turn editing on, and then if I scroll down, I'm going to choose one of my resources here. So I've got lots of resources here. I've got a link to a website, I've got a PowerPoint document here, there's a quiz, and there's also a SCORM package here as well. So it doesn't matter what activity or resource that you choose, you can allow set restrictions on any type of activity. So I'm going to use this PowerPoint document here. Because I've got editing enabled, I can see there's an edit link here, and I can click on edit settings. Okay, so within edit settings, I can change the name of this resource, the description. I can also upload a new file, but all I'm interested in is restricting access, which is this feature here. Because I've enabled the feature, I have this heading here called restrict access. Once I click on it, I can see a button here which will allow me to add a restriction. So I'm just going to click on add restriction, and you can see these are different types of options I have. So the first one I'll use is date. So I can specify a date, a from date or a until date. So they're the two options that you choose first. So I can say, okay, I want to make this resource, this PowerPoint, available to my students from the 12th of June. So when that date arrives, this document will become available to them within the course. So if I just do this eye icon at the beginning here, if you click on the eye icon, that basically means that this activity will be completely hidden from the student and they won't be able to see it. If I leave it as shown, and then the student will be able to see the text, the text of the actual resource, the heading of the resource, but they won't be able to click it. So it'll be like a grayed out text, but they will be able to see a criteria to say that this resource will be available from so and so. So if I just do save and return to course, you can see now at the very bottom that this activity is gone grey, and you can see there's a little caption here which says available from the 12th of June. So that's when that activity will become available. So this is what the student will see. They won't be able to, as a teacher, I can still click it, but my students won't be able to click it. They'll just see the text, and then once the date arrives, they'll be able to access this document. So that's how the date works. If I go into edit and edit settings again, you can add more than one criteria. So if I go into restrict access, I can add another restriction and choose date again, and I can say, or this time I can say I want them to access from the 12th of June until the 24th of June. So if I just choose until here, I can say 24th of June, and then once I've saved my changes, my students will only be able to access this document between the 12th of June and the 24th of June. After the 24th of June, it'll become grey text again, so they won't be able to click on it. Okay, so it's fairly straightforward to use the date feature. Other things that you can do is if I click on add a restriction again, you can choose grade option here as well. So you can say, okay, I want the students to be able to access this document, but based on a grade they achieve within a certain activity that can be graded. So if you look at the choose menu here, these are all the different activities within this course which are gradable. So we have a quiz task here. So in here I could say that the students must achieve a certain grade within this activity. So the grade must be higher than 70%. So if I just put 70 there, and I can also put a less than value as well in there. So if it needs to be a certain percentage within a range, and setting this will basically mean that students will only be able to access this activity if they've achieved 70% within the quiz that I've specified. So if I go down now, you can see the caption has now changed to not available unless you achieved the required score within the quiz task labeled classifying hazards. Okay, the next thing to look at is some other restrict access restriction sets. So if I go back into edit this PowerPoint again, I can disable restrictions very easily by clicking on restrict access, and I can just click on this little cross here to disable the restriction which I set earlier. If I click on add restriction again, I can also choose a group or grouping within my course. So if you've got groups and groupings enabled within your course, which you will have if you're using the EduLink integrator. So the EduLink integrator links with your MIS, such as Sims. So if I go into my course here, so I'm back in my course now, and if I go down, I can see there's a block called EduLink integrator just down here. So this block allows you to add groups and remove groups. So these groups are teaching groups within your Sims database. So if I click on add groups, I can choose a year group, and this way I can enroll my students into this course. I believe I've already got some students enrolled in this course. If I go to users and enrolled users, you can see there's lots of learners enrolled on this course, and you can see that they belong to certain groups as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control access based on a group set. So if I go back into my course, I'm just going to go into the same area again, but this time I'll use this link here. So I'm just going to click on edit and edit settings, and this time I'm going to select a group. So only my group will be able to access this resource. So if I click on restrict access, click on add restriction, you can see there's two options here, group or groupings. Because I've got both enabled, I'm just going to choose group really, because it doesn't really matter what you choose. And then here I can choose my group. Okay, so I'm going to choose 12B GG1, and then I'm just going to click on save and return to course. Okay, so you can see now there's a caption here underneath this resource which says this activity is not available unless you belong to this group here. So we can test this by going into users and enrolled users and seeing who's part of 12B GG1. So the first learner is part of this group. So when I log in as Jimmy Abbey here, I should be able to access this resource. So I'm just going to log out and log in as Jimmy Abbey. Just bear with me a second, I've just got someone on the door.
We just take the TV.
Right, so I'm just going to log in as this user. And then we'll go back into the same course. And if I go down to the same topic, you can see now that I can access this resource. There's no caption. But if I log in as the other user who's not part of this course, just to show you how it works, I'll just go back in. So I'm just going to go into users oops, I need to be in the course first. So just go into the course first, and if I go into site admin, users, enrolled users again, I can log in as, let's say, Cameron here, who's not part of any group. So this user should not be able to see any of the resources that are set for a group. So if I just do log in as, okay, so I'm logged into the course again. If I scroll down, I can see that I can't click on this actual activity, and the reason for that is because I'm not part of 12B GG1. Okay, and I've also got this PowerPoint document which is currently hidden as well, and the reason for that is because I've not taken this quiz. Even if I have taken this quiz, I've not achieved the required score, which was 70%. So that's how students would see the resources which have restrictions set against them. So I'm just going to go back in as a teacher again. Okay, so I'm back in as a teacher again, and I'm just going to go in and use another activity this time. So I'm going to turn editing on again. Okay, so this time I'm just going to use this forum at the top here. So it doesn't matter what type of activity it is. So I've got a news forum here. It could be an assignment or a quiz. So I'm just going to click on edit settings again and just quickly run through those restrictions again. So we've used date, we've used grade, we've used group and grouping, which is the same thing really. The one that we can use now is user profile. So here we can say we can specify. We can basically control access depending on what data is set in the user fields within the student's user profile. So if I click on this, you can see there's a profile field menu here, so I can choose a menu option here. So at the very bottom there's some additional ones here like gender and year, and if I select year, I can say, okay, I only want people in year 12 to be able to access this resource. So as long as the students have the number 12 within the year field within their user profile, then they will be able to access this resource. I don't think you'll need to use this particular restrictions set. You probably use date, grade, and group. And that's all you would use there really. So that's restrictions within Moodle. That's how you would use them. They're fairly easy to use, and you can remove them very easily by clicking on these little crosses at the bottom here, which deletes the restrictions that you apply. And you've also got this eye icon, which if you click it, it'll completely hide the resource, so the student won't be able to see it entirely. Whereas if you leave it shown, they will be able to see like a grayed out link, which they won't be able to click on, which is what we saw with Jimmy when he logged in. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that one and just go back into my course page. So the next thing we need to look at is activity completion. So I have a quiz down here, and it's called classifying hazards. So I'm just going to click on edit and edit settings. And here I have a option called activity completion. So again, activity completion is available on lots of different types of activities, not just quizzes and assignments. And here I can define whether or not I want to enable completion tracking for this particular activity. So there's two options I can choose here. I can ask my students to manually mark this activity as complete, so what they will receive is like a tick box they have to tick, and then that activity is marked as complete manually. Or I can say show activity as complete when certain conditions are met. So this is what I want to do, because I want my students to achieve a passing grade. So I've got passing grade ticked here, and all I need to do now is make sure that my activity has a passing grade. So we can see this in the grade heading here. So at the very top we've got a grade heading, and we can see that the grade to pass this activity is 30%. So 30 out of 100 is what my students need to achieve, which is a lower mark, but that's what I'm going to use for this demonstration. So that's fine. I've got 30 in there. I've got this completion tracking setting enabled so that the activity is marked as complete when the student achieves a passing grade. So all I'm going to do is save and return to course. Okay, so we can see now on the right hand side there's a little icon with a tick box, which signifies that it's an activity that will be marked as complete based on a criteria which needs to be met. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to log out. In fact, before logging out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new activity, and I'm going to add a restriction set onto the activity so that only people who pass this quiz task can access the activity, and the activity will be a game, like a Space Invaders game, which is a module which I have installed on this Moodle site. So if I click on add an activity here, I have a new option here called Quiz Venture. So this is a third-party Moodle plugin which I've installed, and if you need to use it, feel free to get in touch and we'll install it for you. So here I'm going to just click on add, and then this module works very closely with the Moodle quiz question bank. So all we do is give our quiz venture activity a name. I'm just going to call it Space Invaders Game, and then I'm going to choose my question category. So all you do is you link this activity with a certain category within your question bank. So I've got 3 questions in my question bank here called Majid's questions. I'm just going to select this one, and any multiple choice questions this activity will use. Okay, and then I'm going to click on restrict access. Okay, so in here I want to say add restriction. And this time you can see at the very top we've got activity completion, and the reason why we're seeing this now is because we've enabled activity completion within the quiz, and before that we didn't have any activity completion enabled within any of our activities. So I'm just going to click on activity completion, and then I'm going to choose the activity which needs to be marked as complete. So there's only one within this course, which is what I've just set previously. So I'm just going to use this quiz. So this quiz must be marked as complete in order for my students to access this activity. I'm going to leave this eye open so that students can see there's a link there, and then that should hopefully encourage them to do well within the quiz in order to be able to play the game. Okay, so I'm just going to do save and return to course, and as a teacher we should be able to see the activity, the new activity. So we can see now we've got a new Space Invaders game here, and the criteria is the caption says not available unless the activity quiz classifying hazards is marked as complete, and this activity will only be marked as complete if my students achieve a minimum of 30%. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to click on users, enrolled users, and I'm just going to log in as a student. Okay, so I'm just going to click on Megan here. Okay, and then I'm just going to log in as a student. Okay, so if I scroll down, I can see there's actually this student has already marked this activity as complete. They've already achieved the 30% within this quiz. That's why they can see this activity. So I'll just log out and log in as someone else very quickly. So let's just go back into users, enrolled users. I'll just select someone who I've not used before. So I'm just going to use Jackie here, but I will have to enter a false email address because the email address is blank. Email address. Okay, you shouldn't need to do this as long as your students have got email addresses. Something strange going on here. So I'll log back into the teacher. Sorry about this. What I can do is I can reset the quiz so that all the grades are reset. So if I go to edit quiz, I believe, no, it's attempts. I'm just going to delete these attempts and just log in as Jimmy this time. So there's 2 attempts now, that's fine. So if I log in now as Jimmy, where is it, course administration, users, enrolled users. So log in as Jimmy Abbey again. We'll log in as, continue. So here we can see the course as Jimmy Abbey would see it. So you can see some criteria, some activities are grayed out, and again, this activity is shown as complete for some reason. Let's just see grades. Just try one more thing very quickly. Let's go to users, enrolled users. So if I scroll down now. So this is what it should look like. So you can see the Space Invaders game is inaccessible, and the student knows now they must achieve, well, they must mark this activity as complete. So they can click the activity here, or they can click it within the section which is just above here. So I'm just going to click on the activity, and I'm going to attempt the quiz, and I must achieve 30% within this quiz. So I'm just going to quickly go and answer these questions within this quiz. And I'm just going to quickly do this here. Next page, and then finish attempt. And I'm just going to do submit all and finish. And here I've got 65 out of 100. So because I've passed this module, if I go back into my course now, I can see, I should be able to see the Space Invaders game, and it's no longer got the restriction applied to it. So if I click on Space Invaders, this is what the quiz venture activity looks like. So I can click on full screen and enable sound if I need to. But if I click on space, I can see the questions at the very top there, and all I need to do is choose the right answer by hitting the space bar on my keyboard. So that's the quiz venture plugin, which you can install on your Moodle. If you want to have a play with it, feel free to get in touch with us. Yeah, and we'll be happy to install it for you. So it's a good little game to install to get your students learning as well as playing games at the same time. So they're looking at the questions and trying to shoot the right answer. from the spaceship. So that's restrictions, adding restrictions, and activity completion. So the next webinar will be delivered on the 28th of June. So that's at 3:30 again, and on that day, on that time, we'll be looking at how a teacher would import resources and activities from other courses, and we'll also be looking at how a teacher would see course participation to see which activities are being looked at by students, and if students are making any submissions, and what activities are being viewed, that kind of thing. Just a bit of reporting, really. So hopefully, if you do have time on that date, feel free to join our webinar. So just want to say thanks again for watching today. Hope you found it useful, and if you do have any questions, feel free to email those in to me using my email address there, or you can use the chat facility, and I'll get back to you later. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat activity here. So there's no actual questions from you guys. Okay, so all looking good. Just going to look at the Hangout itself. Yeah, there's no questions, I don't think. Yeah, so that's fine. Again, if you do have any questions, feel free to get in touch. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you on the 28th. Thanks again for coming and joining. Bye for now.